entries. I'm going to talk a little bit about how to play the guard itself. Before setting up sweeps or anything like that, you need to understand why the guard works. We've covered a lot of the reasons why, like some of the mechanics of the lapel and how it wraps behind the back, controlling posture, things of that nature. But there's a few things, once it's all together like this, your knees, your knee positioning, your weight, a little bit of what he can do against you. We're just going to cover that right now. So we're just going to get into the position with the basic setup, which is just to swing your leg and sit up here like this. So this is the ringworm guard. Worm guard is just when I pass my leg here. One of the most common problems people face and are always asking me about, whether I'm at a seminar or in training, they say that people grab their foot with their left hand, grab my foot with your left hand and step over it. Where you push the top, yeah. They step over it and push it down. This is a super easy fix. Like, it's not even a big deal at all. But for some reason, not for some reason, it's understandable. It's kind of a complex position. And if you don't know this, it doesn't really make sense to just do it naturally. If you leave your foot hanging out while I'm here, especially if my toes are pointed like this, he could just grab my toes and push them down. It gets a ton of leverage to just step over my foot. Even if he steps over my foot, it's not that big of a deal because look where we are. We're basically in the single leg X entry. All I would have to do to get into that would just be to go to single leg X. And now I'm here. And I can just bring my foot out again and do the exact same entry, right? So he's really just putting you into the single leg X entry. But you can avoid that entirely just with one tiny switch of detail. If anyone starts to ever grab your foot, point your toes this way. Pointing my toes out, away from him, significantly strengthens my leg. And now when he pushes down, a lot of the pressure is redirected into his lapel as he pushes down. And it'll stop a lot of that motion. Another option you can do if it's really a problem is just to go back to the ringworm guard, and as he's starting to reach for my foot, I just grab his sleeve and control it beforehand. So now if he tries to reach again, I would just grab it again. Just something to think about here. Another thing you can do, a third option, is instead of having your foot super past his hip, like this, if I bring just my heel to his thigh, like this, it can be a little harder for him to push my foot down because I've locked my toes over the top of his hip, and now when he tries to push, I have a little bit of leverage there to stop him. Another thing you can do to help against this is if he does manage to push your foot down, like say he's getting it down, in that same motion you can replace it with a deep De La Riva hook, and now he doesn't actually get to set his hips over the top of my leg, because one of the issues is once it's here, he drives his knee down, he sits into you, and then tries to maintain the position like this. He's still not going anywhere or really in a position to pass. It can just be kind of irritating. So if that happens, if you say he starts to do it, go ahead and try and step over. I would just put my foot through so he can't step all the way over, and then I would just secure it again and then continue on to whatever type of sweep or attack I'm going to do from here. So that's one common issue. The only other real counter or escape that's effective would be for him to just maintain some sort of ungodly posture strength. Like if he could just posture straight through this, like he's a deadlifting world champion, he may be able to break your grip there. That's only ever happened to me a few times, and the only person to ever successfully do it was Dominic Bell, because he's just an insanely strong man. To avoid this, turning your leg inward is going to help. Turning my body in facing him and putting a lot of pressure behind his knee like this is really going to mess with his deadlift posture. So I go here and I pull inward so that it forces his legs to go super straight, so he's only able to pull with his back first. So he's just lifting straight with his back, which of course you're not supposed to do. So it counters a lot of his ability to just stand straight up. The deadlift posture break can only really be an issue if I'm this way too far, so he's allowed to really get his hips in and use his full posterior chain. So make sure that you're engaged behind his knee when you're using the worm guard, and really try and keep this knee bent into you. Don't let it just hang out too much. If you leave the leg hanging out too much and he's allowed to keep it super straight, he has good posture and he may be able to step over or potentially posture out of it. Another thing someone mentioned is if you leave it like this, he could just lift his leg and step out completely through the gap, like high step out of it. The same issue is solved with, let me bring it back. The same issue can be fixed with just bringing his knee into you. Keeping this tight like this, he's not going to be able to step his leg out because I have it tight behind his knee. And if he does try, it's exposing his back, which we're going to get into a lot of the...
might as well just...
Yeah, you might as well just give me your back at that point. So those are some control points. Another thing to keep in mind is if you feel like you're losing control of this regular worm guard position, switching to your left hand can switch up your positioning enough that anything they're doing becomes useless against your new body positioning. So if he's posturing or if he's wants to step over my foot or do anything, as he does it, if I switch back to my left hand and then in turn all the way to this side, I've flipped my body. And just in the motion of flipping my body from left to right, a lot of what he's doing was based off of my body facing left, if that makes sense. It's that, like, now I've switched my body completely and nothing is the same. So if he continues trying to do the same counter against me, it's probably not going to work. Posturing especially is super hard against the ringworm guard because I can get collar grips. So if he tries to stand up super straight, I have a super solid postural control here. And then the same thing if he tries to step over my foot, I can control his sleeve, which I've used this a lot in the past in my matches against Leandro, stopping him from stepping over my foot with this. Another thing that people complain about is they say that they're getting ankle locked. So they're leaving their foot out too far and they're allowing someone to grab their foot and they say that the ankle lock is an opportunity. Actually, this isn't an actual problem people complain about. It's just what people on the internet say who've never done the position. They say, isn't a ankle lock an op? Like I could easily ankle lock you or toe hold you from here. The thing about an ankle lock is if someone grabs your ankle and sits back from the worm guard especially, one of the things that they need is they need to be able to arch their back. And it's very hard for them to get a lot of leverage because look how tight the lapel is. By keeping my grip on this, he's not really going to be able to arch his back fully enough to break my leg. It might be uncomfortable, but this is not a very strong foot lock. The other thing is it just perfectly is setting me up to sweep him. If he continues to try and ankle, let's switch to the heel hooks next. Keep the ankle lock on. If anyone ever sits back for an ankle lock on you, all you need to do is sit up. You just bring your body to the opposite side and sit up and put your foot flat on the mat. From here, there's a lot of ways to gracefully exit the worm guard, which we're actually going to get into at the end of this sweeping portion. After we're covering how to play it, and then we're going to cover some sweeps and attacks, and then how to gracefully exit once you get on top. But a quick teaser would be this. How's he going to ankle lock me now? He's going to get reverse triangle. Or any other cool move that I can think of. So those are some basic counters to counters, a little bit of understanding of what control points you're trying to use your grips for, just to maintain the position and not let someone smash you or escape in any way. Which is really the least of your worries from the worm guard. I would say stepping over the foot is probably the most annoying, but also it's a very simple fix of just controlling the sleeve and understanding that don't get tunnel vision on one specific worm guard grip. You're going to want to actively be switching and be fluid in your motions. The worm guard, just like every other position, it's not a static position. It's fluid and dynamic, and you need to embrace that and navigate your movements according to their reactions.